All right, everyone. Welcome to the Real Estate Game Changer Show. I'm your host, Mike McKay, based in the Jacksonville, Florida market. And each and every week, we do this show with people who are changing the game of real estate all over the country. And this is a live show. So if you have any questions, please put them in the comments for our guests to answer. If anyone is in the Jacksonville market or thinking about getting into it, feel free to reach out to us. Always happy to help. And we are still a very active buyer in the Jacksonville market if anyone has any deals that they are looking to sell. This week on the show, I've got Tyler Vinsand. Tyler, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Awesome, man. So, for people who don't know you, can you just share a little bit about how you got into real estate and kind of how that led you to where you are today?
Yeah. I came from like as traditional of a background as you could possibly come from, where I was just taught to get good grades all throughout elementary school, middle school, high school, right? Then you'll eventually get into a good college, get a good job, and entrepreneurship never even crossed my mind ever. Never appealed to me. It wasn't until I got to I followed that path. I got good grades. I got into a pretty good college, and I majored in accounting. Then I went into a grad program where I got my master's of accounting. I decided I was going to pursue the path of being a CPA. When I got to grad school, that's when I had one of my best friends was like, "Hey man, have you looked into buying a house?" And I was like, "Well, considering I'm not 40 years old with kids, like, no, I haven't even considered buying a house." I didn't realize people did that before like having a family, right? And he was like, "Man, you got to check this like bigger pockets thing out." I was like, "Okay." So I checked it out, and like the rest was history. I just became like completely obsessed with the idea of real estate investing. I think in grad school, I probably spent more time studying real estate investing than I did accounting, which is like kind of funny. So I did graduate. I got my CPA license. I went and worked at one of the big four accounting firms as an auditor of a large public company. And my intention was to continue to work that job because it was a great career and just invest in real estate on the side.
Hmm.
What I found was that, man, I was getting up at like 4:30 in the morning to read, listen to podcasts, listen to audiobooks, like anything I could do. Lunch break, same thing. And then after work, it was all the same thing. But what I found was I became so obsessed with real estate investing, like I literally couldn't continue at my accounting job. So I uh, I gave them 6 month notice because I wanted to get through what we call busy season. It's like the hardest time of the year. So I gave them like
Hmm.
a 6 month notice. Said, "Hey, I'm out on April 30th," and I went and worked for somebody for a year as an acquisitions manager. Started up my
Hmm.
own company, and now we're here.
Cool. That's like an interesting start, right? Like that, a lot of people don't talk about that, like going to work for someone else to kind of learn the business. Like, how do you feel that kind of helped you, I guess, break into things?
Oh, it made all the difference in the world. And he was like he's a very smart guy. He's extremely aggressive and tenacious. He wasn't the greatest at like running a business, but what I learned from him is like level of effort. Like so he was so aggressive with follow up, with marketing. He just threw so much at it, and it taught me that in order to get the results that you're looking for, you need to do more than you think is really necessary. I also
Hmm.
learned sales from him, which is really important. So throughout that first year, I didn't learn anything about running a business, to be honest with you. I didn't even learn much about like how to market to like sellers or anything. What I learned is how to do sales and how to do acquisition. So I
Hmm.
locked up a lot of deals for him. I did a really good job. And then so when I started my business up, at that point I knew how to talk to people. I think that's the hardest part of the game. So for me, starting working for somebody else was I don't know if I'd be here today still running the business if I was trying to start it on my own from the beginning.
Yeah. So you worked for him for a year, and then you made the jump off to start on your own. Like, I guess, like, what did that look like the first few months of going out on your own?
Terrifying. We I started it in March of 2020, the same week that like the NBA was shut down for COVID. Like that's when everything hit the fan. Like that was the week that my company was founded. And like up to that point, I'd never gone more than it was literally like 11 days without getting a contract signed. We went the first 2 months without getting a contract signed that I got my when I started my business. So yeah, I was sweating bullets. Like I was like, like I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe it. And then finally, like after those first 8 weeks, I got this hot lead come in, and we ended up making 28 grand on that deal, and that was like the one deal I needed to propel us to move forward, and haven't really looked back since.
Cool. And then like, over time you've done a lot of different things. I mean, I know you have a pretty large rental portfolio. Like at what point did you kind of transition the wholesaling business into more than just a wholesaling business?
It took a while. It actually
Mm,
took a while. And it's interesting because the reason I got into the real estate world was the idea of financial freedom and buying properties and accumulating enough passive cash flow to have the option, but not the obligation to work. But what I learned was the beauty of the wholesale business is that you have the opportunity to source the best deals in your market and see what people are buying them for. See who they're
mm,
using for contractors, see who they're using for lenders. Like you get all the tricks of the trade, you learn what a good deal looks like. So I probably to be honest with you, I think I probably wholesaled my first 60 deals before I kept one, just because
mm.
I wanted a crystal clear picture of exactly what a good deal looks like, and when I find one, how do I take this thing all the way to the finish line without making any kind of mistakes or bumps and bruises that could lead me to pressing the financial reset button.
Sure. And then I guess when you did decide to start building that rental portfolio, how'd you go about doing that? Because a lot of guys in the wholesale business, they kind of get trapped in feeding the beast is what they sometimes call it. They don't actually end up buying the rentals that they always said they wanted to buy.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, I think it just depends what your goals are. Like if you're more obsessed with the idea of building this big wholesaling operation that spits off a lot of you know active income every single month, then maybe feeding the beast is the best answer. I know, like I was very aligned on my goals from the get go. Like my goal was financial freedom.
Hmm.
My goal is not to accumulate all the wealth in the world. I don't care about being the richest man. I want to accumulate as many experiences as I can. I want to live the life that I dreamed of. So I set a goal of buying at least one rental property per month. I just set certain parameters. Like I'll never buy a property built before 1950. Uh, I try to only buy properties that are 3 and 4 bedrooms. I own a couple 2 bedrooms, but those are just if it was a great deal, I'll take it.
Hmm.
Um, I won't buy anything that requires more than $50,000 worth of work in rehab, mostly because I don't
Hmm.
like rehabs. I'm not very good at them. The ones below 50 grand are pretty simple. So
Hmm.
as long as it meets that buy box, and it's not in a D class area, that's the other thing. I don't buy in bad areas.
Hmm.
As long as it meets that buy box, then I was trying to keep at least one of those each month.
Gotcha. And is that still the goal to today, even with kind of changing rates and everything, or has that shifted for you?
It's yeah, I still try to keep one every single month, and it's gotten a lot harder. So like even I'd say like the last 3 rentals I bought, the cash flow is a lot slimmer. But for
Hmm.
me, I'm okay with that because these are properties that I love in areas that I love, and I just don't see myself ever really selling them.
Hmm.
So if I have to tell myself like I'm slotting into skinny cash flow during a high interest rate environment, but long term this is something I'll keep where I see rents continuing to appreciate. Then hopefully at some point rates come back down and I'll have the option to refinance. That's a position I'm still willing to take, 10 times out of 10.
Gotcha. And I know we were talking a little bit offline, and you were saying that pre-foreclosures have really been a game changer for you guys. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, let's do it. So, first off, I would say I'd be open to a discussion with anybody, but I feel like pre foreclosures is the single hottest list of prospects you can possibly target, regardless of what market you're in.
Hmm.
These people, I mean, realistically, like they're facing one of the most difficult times of their life. So you do have an ethical and moral obligation to make sure you look out for them. But at the end of the day, like they can catch up the overdue balance, they can try to get a loan modification, they can file bankruptcy, they can go to auction, or they can sell the property. I mean, that's usually what they're looking at as their primary options. And a lot of times, what these people do is they kick the can down the road. They get really close to that auction. They pick up the phone and they call and they just say, "My auction is in X number of days. I owe this much. I need help." So for me, I reached a point where I still like transacting in normal. I say normal, like your typical absentee or owner occupied properties, non pre foreclosure properties. But at a certain point, I started to miss kind of the fulfillment piece. Whereas I feel like pre foreclosures, once we got into
Hmm.
those, really brought it back for us. Like we were able to really make a huge difference for these people. That's one piece of it that I really like. The other piece of it is that it costs next to nothing to market to them. We get the data totally free from the attorney websites. We skip trace them, which we skip trace. I mean, it's probably 300 a month. I mean, it's not
Hmm.
very much. Uh, I have drip sequences within my CRM that does all the texting. We spend, it's like 54 cents per mailer, and we only send those out once a week. We have one full-time caller. He gets paid $5 an hour. It's very, very cheap. And then out of that, we're averaging 2.5 deals a month and average profit of 24 grand per deal. So when you look at the return on that, it's been huge for us.
Yeah. And then is there like a different approach that you take when, you know, talking from a sales perspective, right? When talking to these pre-foreclosure leads than you would someone else?
Yeah. So we're not necessarily coming out as we buy houses, right? We're not doing that.
Mm,
It's more like when we get in touch with these people, whether they call us from a piece of mail or we do some door knocking or a text or a phone call, whatever. The approach is more of, hey, Mike, my name's Tyler. I noticed that your property's up for auction on X date. Look, I don't think their process is very fair to homeowners. I'm here to help. I'm a pre-foreclosure prevention specialist here in our market, and I just wanted to see what kind of plan we had in place to tell. And that's that we just say something to the effect of, hey, just for my peace of mind, when you say you've got it handled, like what do you mean by that specifically? I just sure I can write. I've seen a lot of people think they've got it handled, but then they end up losing it to auction, and I don't want that to happen. So we talk through what they've got planned and talk about potential backup plans and all that. We don't really take what I call like the mask off, right? The we buy and reveal that we buy houses until that's an option that's really viable for them. We just try to figure out what is your picture perfect scenario, how do you plan to get there, and what happens if you don't, and how can we help make sure that this option doesn't happen. Looks like we lost Mike. Well, while we're waiting for Mike, I'll talk through our framework a little bit more. But when we do reach these people, when we're cold calling, it's our conversation. I know I kind of covered it. I can cover it a little bit more, but it's literally just a Mike, are you back?
I am back. Yeah. I'm sorry, I missed the
Cool.
last 40 seconds, but keep rolling.
You're good. No, no, no. I was going to cover the framework that we do when we talk with these sellers because and I shouldn't say sellers, these homeowners, because that's what they are. They're not sellers, they're homeowners. But it's pretty simple. It's just what I call like a three-pronged framework. Very first one is figure out what their picture perfect scenario is. If they are dead set on keeping this house and they don't want to sell it, then we're not going to come out and try to convince them to sell their house, right?
Mm,
They want to sell it. That's step number one. Figure out the picture perfect scenario. Step number two is to figure out like what's your plan to get there. So, I want to keep my house. I'm going to apply for a loan modification. I'm working with the bank. Okay, great. Step number three is what happens if that plan doesn't work out. So it looks like your auction date is scheduled for November 1st. What happens if you apply for that loan modification and they don't call you back until October 27th and they tell you that it wasn't approved? What would you do? Well, I don't know. I guess I didn't really think about that. Okay. Well, what I'd love to do is I do not want to see that happen, and I don't want to see more people go to foreclosure than needs to be. So I'd love to come meet you in person and discuss all the options, discuss backup plans that hopefully never come into play. But just for your peace of mind and mine, I want to make sure we're taken care of no matter what happens. And so
mm,
that's usually how our conversations go, like that of a consultant that truly and genuinely cares about this homeowner finding eventually reaching their picture perfect scenario.
yeah. And do you even go out and meet with the people who are dead set on keeping the house? I'm just kind of wondering if a lot of that does change as the auction date gets closer, so you figure those are viable, or you kind of pass on those ones.
No, we still go and meet with them a lot of times. Like, if someone is dead set on trying to keep the house, we'll still try to set the appointment. We'll teach them on
Mm,
how to go apply for the loan modification, right? For one, like we're helping a lot of people, and odds are, like if we go and we meet with somebody, there's some other doors that we can go knock in the area. So it's not like it's like a complete waste of time or anything like that. But we're helping them achieve what they want to do, and then, God forbid, like the loan modification doesn't work out, or the money that they think they have coming that they can use to catch up the mortgage doesn't come, like you're their first call. You're the consultant that they trust, that they establish a relationship with. So that happens a lot of times where people, they've got it covered, right?
mm,
And then they call us at the last hour seeing if we can help, and we've gotten a couple deals doing it that way.
gotcha. And then, so you say you're pulling the this pre-foreclosure list from various attorney sites. I know it's different in every market, but for people who maybe don't know where to find that information, how would they go about finding that for free, possibly in their area?
This was crazy. A colleague of mine taught me this. So most of the markets operate this way, but lenders don't really conduct the foreclosures themselves. Like they hire an attorney to do it, and so that's
Hmm.
what I'm talking about when I say attorney sites. So if you want to figure out how to get all of the attorney sites within your market, it's pretty simple. Go to auction.com, filter for the ones that are in foreclosure, and then there's this little button that you can hit that says, I think it says like for foreclosure contact information. When you click that button, it gives you the name of the law firm. So we copy and paste the law firm, put it in the next, like you open up a tab, copy and paste it, and then let's say it's like Johnson and Johnson law firm, right? Just
Hmm.
put Johnson and Johnson law firm pre foreclosure search, and then it has the website with all the properties that go up for auction, and it's updated in real time. So like in the state of Virginia, and I'm telling you, I think most markets are this way. The
Hmm.
attorneys are required to update their website the moment a notice of default goes out.
Interesting. So does their website get updated before like the pre-foreclosure I can't remember the name of it gets filed, like that document gets filed with the county recorder's office, or
I don't know. To be honest
okay.
with you, I don't know the answer to that one. I don't know which one hits first, but um, I know like a lot of times we've set up some automation so that when a property hits the website, it ultimately trickles into our CRM and our drip sequence starts almost
Mm.
instantly, like in real time. Most of these people find out about their auction from us.
Wow, so you guys are getting to them before anyone else,
Yeah, yeah.
investor wise, I mean. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. My brother's an extremely smart guy. He's a programmer, software engineer. He built like a web scraper that can scrape a lot of his attorney websites, build the data in real time. We set up basically an automation so it skip traces as soon as it hits our database. Once it gets skip trace information, goes into our
Wow.
CRM, and that's when our drips start.
Wow. And do you find that there's an advantage of being that first person to reach out to them?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. You'll
Mm.
you'll reach some people that like they're like, yeah, I want to sell it. we
Sure.
we I have one that we're closing on the back end of it on what's today? Today's September 9th. It's next week. The lady, we hit her like right away, and she was like, she lived in Georgia. This property is in Virginia, and she was like, "Yeah, I owe 115. I just want to sell it." I was like, "Okay." So I called her. I said, "Hey, I got your text. So tell me, like, what are we trying to accomplish here?" And she's like I said, I owe 115. I just want to sell it. I was like, "Okay, so you just want 115?" She's like, I don't know, just like a little something. I was like, okay, what's a little something? She was like 118. I was like, ah, okay. And yeah, and that
Yeah,
was it. And then we signed the DocuSign on that call.
sure. Interesting. And then I guess like I'm just curious like in terms of that you also direct mail these people you said like once a week that automatic is that automatic through your system as well or
No, I tried to automate that as much. I probably can automate it to be honest with you, but no, I have a VA that does it. So basically, within our database, this might get a little complex, so I'm going to try to simplify it. Within our database, we have a few different columns, uh, and those columns are classified based on when their auction date is scheduled for.
Mhm.
So if you can picture like four different columns, with the farthest column out being auction dates that are more than 8 weeks away from today, all those people receive, it's like a very friendly letter that like tells them who we are, say like, and we do reveal, like in that case we do reveal like we buy houses, but we just say like, hey, look, like we're a local investor, and if you need us as a backup plan, like call us. But what we really specialize in is helping homeowners navigate the pre-foreclosure situation. We don't think the bank's process is very fair to homeowners, so we're passionate about what we do. And a lot of times, a homeowner's best option doesn't involve us, but we still help them anyway. Just give us a call to help figure out your plan. It's free of charge. We're not looking for anything. We're just trying to help. That's what like the first letter says. It's very friendly,
Mm.
very like forthcoming and offering help as much as we can. That's if their auction date is like more than 8 weeks away. So then we have
Okay. And is
six to
that
eight
going
weeks.
out the first is that on the 8 week mark or is that when it first like hits your system it kind of goes out that week?
If
Is
their
that
so we send the mail every single Wednesday, and so if their auction date is more than 8 weeks away from today, then
Mhm.
they receive that letter. So like
Okay.
if they, does that make sense?
I think so as soon as they hit the system they get that letter as long as it's more than 8 weeks away. So they could be 12 weeks away. They'd still get that
They
letter
could be 12 weeks
immediately.
away, and they would receive that letter every Wednesday for the next 4 weeks
Okay.
until they get to the 6 to 8 week period. Then we send a postcard that's like slightly more urgent. Like it says like their property address, and it says like, hey, this is an urgent matter. We need to speak immediately.
Mm,
That's pretty much. It's still vague. Like it doesn't really. In that case, like we don't really say like we're home buyers. Like it's pretty vague. And then we do the 4 to 6 week mark, which is a little more pressing. Say like, hey, like this is kind of your last chance. Like you need to call us right now. We don't have a lot of time to work. And then the final one is the 2 to 4 week bucket, and that one is like, consider this your final chance. If you want to save this property, you need to call us right when you get this. And so it just increases in aggression the closer that the auction gets.
right. And so they're basically getting a letter every week since they enter your system,
Exactly. Unless
or
they
postcard. Yeah.
Right, unless they remediate the pre-foreclosure, meaning like they catch up the mortgage or they get their loan modification or we convert them to a lead or something like that, then, it updates in our system so they don't receive our marketing anymore.
Got it. Super, super interesting. And is this like the only marketing you guys do, or is this just like one of your core focuses?
It's one of the core focuses. Uh, we're in an interesting spot to be totally transparent. So for the last, since I started the business back in March 2020, we've been like diehard SMS. I'm a
Mm,
huge believer in it. I think the cost per lead and the cost per deal has been phenomenal. I think the hidden benefit behind SMS and cold call marketing, like you get a lot of leads and a lot of them can be bad leads. The beauty of it though is you get to refine your sales process by having that many leads. Like if you don't have a good sales process, then like it's you're just going to crash and burn. So we refined and created like a really good sales process by having this mass amount of SMS leads. So that's
mm,
been great. The downside to it is you've got restrictions and regulations that are getting tighter and tighter. So we're at like a really awkward spot right now where we're starting to shift away from it into more sustainable sources like direct mail. We're going harder into pre foreclosures,
hmm.
starting to dabble into some PPL, just stuff like that. Trying to find a good backbone to build us on.
Yeah. Um, Talk about your sales process because you say that really helped you refine it. I'm curious what your guys' sales process is now that it's dialed in.
Yeah, the way that we determined how we needed to refine it was by figuring out which KPIs we needed to track, which are pretty
Mm,
simple. It's leads, net leads. So we need to convert our leads to net leads at least 90% or better. Then we have appointment set. So we need to convert at least 12% of our net leads into appointment set. Then we have appointments attended,
hmm.
which we need to convert at least 80% of our appointments set into appointments attended. Then we have offers made. We better be making an offer every single time we go on an appointment. So that needs to be at 100%. And
Hmm.
then we have contract signed, which needs to be at 20% of the offers that we make, meaning we close one out of every 5 offers we make. And so as long as those KPIs, like those ratios that I just went over, are hitting for us on the acquisition side of the business, we're doing pretty well. We're doing pretty
Mm,
well. If one of them goes out of whack, I know where to dive in and, we tweak a few things, test some independent variables and just try to correct the process from there. And then the other piece of the sales process is, so I'll focus more on acquisitions, like on the appointment. I mean, we've
hmm.
got our entire in-person appointment scripted out. I mean, we probably have like a 4 or 5 page document that has all of it scripted out. I'm talking about like the conversation you have after you get out of the car and before you walk into the front door. Then once you get into the front door, what that conversation looks like. We're setting
Mm,
expectations all the way. We're creating upfront agreements with escalating agreements throughout the appointment. We even talk about when we get to the negotiation side of things, at what point we step out of the house to give some space and then come back in. We go pretty in depth, but I found, and I know it sounds probably ridiculous. Like you're like, man, just go on the appointment, build some rapport, and get the contract locked up. That's what we used to do.
yeah.
But it was just inconsistent. In sales, you have a lot of ebbs and flows. We found that by having an extremely detailed sales process, we've gotten a lot more consistent.
Yeah. No, I'm a big believer in having a real sales process. So I think that's awesome. I'm just curious, what does that, let's say you walk out of the car, person's there, what does that look like? What should it look like in your sales process?
So we have a list of all the expectations that we need to set. So we walk up, maybe create a little bit of small talk, joke about how it's nice to not just be a voice behind the phone or anything like that. But then we explain to them exactly what this appointment looks like. Hey, I know I told you this over the phone, but His appointments typically last somewhere between 45 minutes to an hour. I'm going to get to know you. I'm not a funny guy, but I'm going to try to crack jokes. I'll try to make you laugh and stuff. I just have fun on these things, to be honest with you. Along the way, um, I'll be asking some questions both about the property, about the history of the property, about the condition, about your situation, just try to get to know you better. Ultimately, what my job here is to do on this appointment is to figure out what you are trying to accomplish. I want to
Mm,
figure out what is your picture perfect scenario in the sale of this house. And to be honest with you, it might not involve me, and that's okay. I shoot myself in the foot all the time. But what I'm going to try to do by the end of this appointment is present you with what I believe are the best options to achieve what you're trying to get to.
mm,
And so that's usually how we start that off, and then we go in and do the rest of it.
sure. And that's for your non pre foreclosures. The pre foreclosure ones are handled a little bit differently because you kind of take that more consultant approach.
Exactly. Yep. Yeah. Pre foreclosure is totally different.
Gotcha. Interesting. And then I guess kind of back to the pre foreclosure. So I think that's really interesting. It like what like other like hiccups do you run into with those kind of deals?
Oh man. I'd say waiting until the last minute is a huge one. I mean, we get a lot of calls like the day before the auction.
Yeah.
I mean, we have some where we've succeeded, and we've had some where we failed. And the ones where we failed, like they hurt. I mean, it's tough, but we give our best swing. But like we get a lot where they'll call us at, I mean, literally 4 or 5 p.m. the day before and say my auction's at 10 a.m. tomorrow. Is there anything at all that can be done? It's like, I mean, we can try. You know what I
Jeez.
mean? We can try. We've been, believe it or not, we've been successful before. We had one lady call us at 6 p.m. the night before her 10 a.m. auction, and we did get it successfully canceled. Like it is possible, and we can't do it. Just can't guarantee it. Like what? I'm not the lender. I don't hold the final decision.
Mm.
I just do my very best at knowing what I know, at trying to get it canceled.
How do you go about getting it, or at least attempting to get it canceled?
So what we need is we need a purchase agreement signed, and this is tricky, man, because if you get that purchase agreement signed and it is $10 short of the payoff, the lender is going to tell you to get lost. Like they just won't even look at it. So that purchase agreement has to be higher than the payoff. The trick
Mm.
is you don't know what the payoff is. Like you have to order the payoff from the lender, so you don't know what the payoff is. I came up with like a formula based on looking at mortgage statements and how far they're behind and whatnot. So we can calculate a rough payoff estimate. It's still not perfect. So we know we need to get the contract signed for higher than that for the bank to take a look at it. So we get the purchase agreement signed. That's the first thing. Then we get the mortgage third party account authorization form signed, which
Mm.
basically just whoever's on the mortgage, it's them giving you permission to speak on their behalf with the lender pertaining to matters that for the mortgage. The tricky part about that is that that has to be a wet signature. That cannot be a digital signature. So if you're doing this virtually, like we sometimes do, that means that in order to be able to speak with the lender and the attorney regarding this mortgage and this property, you have to have the seller on the line with you for a three-way call.
Mm.
Uh, so that's one other hiccup. And then the third thing that we need, so we've got purchase agreement, we've got the mortgage third party account authorization form, and then the third one is proof of funds. So you need a
Mm.
proof of funds that shows that you can buy it. And then I usually, when I send that stuff over, I include a little blurb, like a bio about who the seller is. I don't air out their personal business and what they're going through, but I just say that, this. Please understand that this individual is going through one of the hardest times in their entire life. And I know this may seem like a pretty small decision, but you do have an opportunity here with this in these next 15, 20 minutes, whatever it is, to make a life-changing impact on this individual. We're ready to buy this thing. All we need is time for clear title. They came to us yesterday. We've got the funds. We've seen the property. We're good to go. We just need time for clear title. We're just asking for more time. And
Um,
that's what we do to try to get it postponed. And so most of the time it's successful, but sometimes it's not.
yeah. So I guess in that scenario, you're really at the mercy of the lender at a certain point when it's that late.
Yeah, yeah, you are at the mercy of the lender. Yep.
Yeah.
One other thing I will say, I probably should have touched on this earlier. When we pull the data and we determine who we're going to market to,
Mm.
we put a 40% or higher equity filter on it. What we have found is that, and we determine 40% equity by the estimated value in batch leads compared to the
Uh-huh.
estimated mortgage balance in batch leads. What you need to
Mm.
understand, I think everybody knows this, that estimated value in batch leads is not perfect. That estimated mortgage balance in batch leads is wrong because it's assuming that they're current on their mortgage, which we know they're not, right?
Mhm.
So that's why we stay at 40% or north. What we found is when we went south of 40%, a lot of these people we just couldn't help. Like the
Mm.
property was, it needed too much work. Their arrears were way too much. I mean, we come across people that are 100, 110, $120,000 behind on their mortgage. You can't really take that sub two unless you're going to flip it. And if you don't have enough equity there, then we're not going to flip it. So it just gets a little tricky when you try to go less than 40%. At least that's what we found.
Yeah. And is that a common strategy? Are you taking a lot of these subject to?
Yeah, yeah. I mentioned I buy one property a month. I mean, those usually come in the form of uh, sub two pre foreclosure. Yeah.
Hmm. Do is the subject to part on that purchase agreement that you send over to the lender, or
No, we just send over a cash agreement to the lender, and if we're going, I mean, usually we can make that cash purchase work. So like if we had to, we'll still go through with it, but then we'll try to get like a sub two agreement signed subsequently.
yeah, I would imagine the lender wouldn't be a fan of seeing that right before the auction date. So
Yeah, yeah.
got it. Okay. And then I guess like what other tips do you have for people who were considering going after this
After pre
kind of pre
foreclosures.
yeah, after pre-foreclosures, yeah.
The biggest thing is if you're going to look at this for financial gain and selfish reasons, you're not going to succeed. And I know that sounds crazy. It probably sounds kind of cliche, but these people will not trust you. They can sniff that out. Like they have debt collectors calling them 30,000 times a day. They have debt collectors sending them mail, knocking on their door, the same thing that we're doing. So if you are not going there with a pure heart of trying to help and trying to serve, then I would say just don't do it. For one, you won't have success. I can guarantee it. For two, like that's not what these people deserve. These people really do need the help. So I would just say go in with the purest of intentions, and it will come back to you tenfold.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's a really good point. And then I think we were um talking earlier, you own some mobile home parks you were saying.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah.
How'd
Uh,
you get into that?
that's another crazy story, man. I've got a lot of these things. Uh, so back when I first got into real estate, when I was still working for the other guy, this was in 2019. I saw I saw Brandon Turner post an ad on his Instagram account looking for essentially cold callers for his like off market mobile home park acquisition team. And I was like such a Brandon Turner fanboy. I still am. No shame in my game. I still am. So I like the moment I saw it, I applied, and then lo and behold, I got it, which was super cool. So I was like one of 24 cold callers, just cold calling mobile home parks. But what was awesome is I learned like what Brandon's team would go after, like what makes a good mobile home park. What criteria do we not consider? Like if it has, for example, like they don't touch anything with a well and septic.
Hmm.
That's just like a big unpredictable expense. They don't like to deal with it. They only do public water, public sewer. Um, they like to deal with tenant-owned homes rather than park-owned homes. Just little things like that. But ultimately, I figured out like what the perfect mobile home criteria is.
Hmm.
Uh, so I worked for Brandon, and they ended up letting us go. Like they decided to just go through brokers. They did a lot better that way. Uh, so then, fast forward to this was 2021. Yeah, so 2 years ago, I decided like, man, I'm gonna try to buy my own mobile home park. Why not? So I hired a virtual assistant to go virtually driving for dollars. And the way that I did that is you go on Google Maps, go on the aerial view, and
Hmm.
mobile home parks stick out very distinctly because if you can picture them, like they're situated, like the houses are situated kind of in rows, and they're long, skinny, and they like silver and shiny. It's pretty easy to identify them on Google Maps.
Hmm.
Once you do identify one, you grab the little yellow guy on the bottom right of the screen, drop him down to the street view, and this is like the craziest thing ever. Is like these mobile home park owners put their phone, like their primary cell phone numbers, like on the front of these parks. Like it's crazy.
Yeah.
Like there's no skip tracing. Like it's just like, yeah, just call the number on the sign. I'm like it's so crazy. I mean, if it's
Wow.
a big park, like you'll probably receive the park manager. But
Hmm.
like these ones that I was going after like 20 to 60 pads. Like
Hmm.
those, it was always just the park owner. Uh, and then I ended up landing two of them that way.
Wow.
Actually, that's not true. I landed three of them, but I wholesaled the third, and I kept the other two.
Yeah. And then so were you like uh, looking up in some database the addresses for these places first so that the VA could do that, or they were just like scouring areas that tend to have a lot of mobile home parks, or like how are they go about doing that?
They scoured zip code by zip code.
Wow.
Now you'd be surprised, like if you hop on Google Maps, go to the aerial view, like you'd be surprised how easy it is to identify the mobile home parks. It
Hmm.
doesn't take as long as you would think to cover a zip code. It actually
Mm.
doesn't. I was kind of surprised.
And then is that also in Virginia, or is that different areas of the country that you were looking at?
Those two are in Little Rock, Arkansas. So I was targeting the Central Arkansas MSA. I think it was just a little less competitive. The price to rent ratios made a lot more sense.
Hmm.
For me, the price entry was a lot more attractive. I mean, I was not, and still, quite frankly, I'm not in a position to syndicate millions of dollars to take down a big asset. Like, my first park, I negotiated seller financing. I only had to put 16 grand down on it, and that's because he had a note on his remaining. So, I just paid him the 16 grand, and then we had the mobile home park. The other one, I ended up we bought that one using bank financing, but
Mm.
for the down payment, we got that at 85% LTV, which is unheard of. Usually
Mm.
with mobile home parks, like a lot of times you'll see lenders give like 60% LTV on the purchase. We
Hmm.
got 85%. The remaining 15%, we were able to get a line of credit from a bank, so we were into that one with no money down, which is like insane.
Wow. Yeah. How do you go about managing these like kind of like mid-sized mobile home parks?
On my first park that I bought, I have a phenomenal partner that's boots on the ground there. We're 50-50 on that one. He's like exceptional at managing the park. The other one, he manages that too. Like, not that he doesn't work hard or anything, but the second one that I'm talking about, they're all tenant owned homes. So you own the
Mm.
land, and then they pay you lot rent every single month just to live on your land. You're not responsible for any maintenance of any houses. I don't get leaky toilet calls, anything like that at all. All we do is we cut the grass, we pay taxes, we have liability insurance. We don't insure the homes because we don't own them. Um, we have like two big lights in the park that we have a very small utility bill on,
Hmm.
and that's about it. Other than that, it's just collecting the rents from the tenants.
Yeah. And are you still going after mobile homes, or are you kind of a little bit more focused on the single family at the moment?
More focused on the single family at the moment, for sure. Uh, Honestly, I probably got into the mobile home parks a little preemptively. I mean, not that we haven't had to pay any kind of price or anything like that, but I've just realized that I think the best way to a strong passive income is by building a strong active income. And at the
Hmm.
time that I was buying these mobile home parks, I don't think I was as financially strong as I should have been. So I've
Hmm.
just focused on building a very, very predictable single family business that
Hmm.
that generates the active income I think I need to be able to get more aggressive with the mobile home park. So it'll come back. I mean, it might come back soon. We'll see. But for now, I'm definitely laser focused on the single family game.
Gotcha. And what does your single family business look like today?
So like I said, I mean, we're still almost exclusively SMS marketing with pre foreclosures as well.
Hmm.
But I mean, literally, like I'm saying, like as we speak, like between this week and next week, we'll continue to do SMS. I mean, I think I'll be at the SMS funeral whenever that day comes, but we're using this week as the opportunity to build out those other more sustainable lead sources. So I've got one texter that
Hmm.
manages our two texting accounts. He sends, roughly 5,000 texts a day. We've got three lead managers. We've got a couple of administrative VAs. We've got two acquisition managers. And then actually just today, I hired an absolute, I think she's going to be an absolute rock star, badass transaction coordinator slash dispo that I can't be more excited to get on board. And that's our team.
Nice. And then what are those more sustainable channels that you're looking at?
Looking at direct mail, that's going to be a big one. That I envision as being the backbone, and then also really interested in pay per lead as well.
Hmm.
Uh, I've heard I've heard mixed reviews on pay per lead. I've heard really good things. I've heard not so great things, but I love the concept of it. I love the idea, and we're going to give it a go and see what happens.
Sure. Cool. Um, and then we were talking a little bit offline before too, about, title companies versus closing with an attorney. And I think it's like an interesting topic that people don't talk about much. So you want to kind of share your viewpoint on that?
Yeah, and I would tie it back to a more overarching idea, and I think like a lot of people get so obsessed with the idea of like pinching pennies in every opportunity that they can get, as opposed to focusing on building relationships that will, you know, squander the pennies that you save a million times over, right? So, and I think attorneys and title companies are this way. I used to use a title company, and I still love them to death. Like I'm saying, like I'm genuinely friends with like everybody in that office. Like I moved from Virginia to Denver, and I still keep in touch with them, even though I don't transact with them anymore. The problem that I ran into is like just as you do more deals, you come across really weird situations where you legitimately need legal advice, and they would try to help me as best they could, but they would be like, at the end of the day, like Tyler, like we're not attorneys, like I can't help you with this, right? So then we started looking for like a good law firm to use, and our closing costs, they did go up less than you would think. Like on average, like I think we pay, it's right around $700 more per transaction on average. But what we did is I built very similar relationships with all the people in this office. Now I've got like the head attorney's cell phone number, so when stuff comes up, like I don't know, it's really nice to be able to text this attorney and get some legal advice just for being able to bring all the transactions their way. For
Mm,
me, that provides peace of mind that I have a hard time putting a price tag on.
yeah. Yeah. No, I think that's a really awesome point. We close with an attorney too, so it's interesting to hear someone else have a similar opinion in a state that it's not required, right?
Yeah, yeah. What made you, just curious, like what made you decide to switch?
Um, I mean, I come from kind of like my real estate background is like New York City, where you have to use an attorney. So I was always used to having that ability to ask for legal advice on a transaction, right?
Yeah,
And it just kind of was weird to me when I came to Florida as a title state, and I was like, I can't ask them for legal advice. Like, isn't that what I'm really seeking? A lot of times, like we also end up in, weird transactions, like there's a contract for deed and there's a probate and there's this and there's that, and I'd rather just be able to kind of get that advice all in one place instead of having to be like, okay, now I got to get, you know I do have an outside probate attorney we use, but everything else, it's like I just, the attorneys also handle evictions when we need them and all that. So just kind of like having everything under one roof and being able to like just get the answer to those questions without having to go seek outside help every time. That's kind of
yeah.
how I looked at it. um,
No, we're in the same boat there. Same
yeah.
boat.
Yeah, in Florida, it's really comparable, frankly, the pricing. I mean, maybe it's a little cheaper to close a title company. I don't know, but I don't think much. So at least North Florida, Northeast Florida. So, um, well, man. So, I guess for you, what's your vision for, call it, the next 3, 4, 5 years with your company?
To be honest, man, it's changed so much. I still think about it every day. I don't have as of right, to be fully transparent as of right this moment, I don't have the clearest vision on what the next 3 to 5 years look like. I have an extremely clear vision on what the next year looks like, and what the
Mm,
next year looks like is it's a shame. This was a failure in leadership on my part that I'm even ashamed to admit to. But we have a phenomenal brand. I mean, we have a phenomenal online presence. We have phenomenal referrals from sellers we've worked with, buyers we've worked with, agents, everyone you can think of. We always try to make sure we do the right thing, and that's shown in our reputation. Haven't leveraged it in our marketing at all, like
mm,
at all. We hide behind texting and calling, which is just silly in my opinion. Uh, so this switch to a more sustainable lead source where we leverage that brand, I think is going to be huge, huge for
mm,
us. As far as like the team goes and what the operation is going to look like, I love what our operation looks like currently. I think we're going to continue to go after pre-foreclosures. Our team loves it. It's really fulfilling. It's financially, it makes a lot of sense. And I still don't think we're very good at it, to be honest with you. I think we have a really, really long way to go. Uh, Team wise, our acquisition guys are good. Like I said, I couldn't be more stoked about this lady that I'm bringing on for TC and Dispo. And I love having a small team. I really do. I don't love. and to each their own. I know a lot of people that have a lot of success with a really big team. It's not necessarily what I want.
Mm.
I don't love the idea of having all these different departments with department heads and people that report to people that report to people that report to me. You know what I mean? Uh, I like the smaller team feel for sure. So as far as our team goes, I don't see a whole lot changing, hopefully. And then operationally, I'm just going to get a like
Hey, Tyler, I lost you there for a second. You said
there we go.
operationally.
Operationally, we're going to continue to do what we've been doing. I just think we're just going to get better and better with it at what we're already doing.
Cool. And then one other thing that I think we should hit on, because we talked a little bit about it offline, that you guys have kind of been taking down some more properties as well as like, doing some novations as well. Like what made you guys kind of shift to that strategy versus just kind of the normal wholesale model?
You want the ugly truth? We had to.
Yeah. Good.
we, had, we had to. I tell you what, if we were still just doing like normal like off market assignments, I don't know that. I mean, we'd probably barely be breaking even. Honestly, we went from an average deal size of about $10,000 per deal to now we're up at $24,000 per deal, and that's by leveraging the MLS. I have
Mm,
a phenomenal contractor that I have just a fantastic relationship with this guy, but he's the most incredible dude. He immigrated from Guatemala. He runs an incredibly he legally immigrated from Guatemala. He runs an incredibly successful contracting business, did extremely well his first year here in the US, bought a house cash for his family.
cool.
Now, like anytime I can, where I get like he still hasn't gotten to the point where he can qualify for financing yet. I'm working on that with him. But man, if we get a house that's like cheap enough that he can flip, that he can buy cash and fund the rehab and everything, he gets those. He gets some of the sub twos that we decide that aren't a fit for us for one reason or another. So I was blessed with a really good contractor that helps us out. So having him kind of opened the door to doing a lot more flips and wholesales.
Yeah. So in that scenario, you're kind of taking the property down, and then I know you mentioned you have some criteria. You don't want to go above a certain renovation amount.
Yeah, the house has to be built after 1950. The rehab has to be less than $50,000. I just don't like rehabbing houses. I really don't. I don't like designing them. My flips, it's literally a shame to even call them flips because they're not flips. I literally just try to bring the house to par, like to
Mm,
whatever par is
yeah,
in the neighborhood. Like that's what we do, right? Like, and it's not putting crap in there. It's like putting solid stuff. Just I don't get a whole lot of excitement out of putting in like the beautiful accent walls with the special quartz countertops. It's just not of my interest.
yeah.
So the repairs have to be south of 50 grand, has to be built after 1950. We try to keep our ARVs below 350 to stay in that first time home buyer range in our
Mm,
market. Typically find that days on market are a lot shorter when we do that. 3 and 4 bedroom properties, as long as it meets those, then we're good to go.
yeah. And then you do sometimes do novations as well, though. I think you were mentioning.
Yeah, we do. So if it doesn't meet that box, and the seller doesn't take our cash offer, I mean, we still give a cash offer, but sometimes that won't work for them. Maybe they have a higher number that we just can't come to, and we can't give them the certainty. That's when we'll shift to a novation where we tell them like, Mr. Seller, I understand that our $100,000 offer doesn't make sense for you. I know you're stuck at this 130. Um, Look, I know this sounds crazy, but we just rolled out this program just a few months ago. We call it our equity protection program. Um, but to be honest, and by doing that equity protection program, like we're usually able to offer a lot more. I just don't even know that your property or your situation would totally qualify for it. And like they
Mm,
inevitably ask, well, what needs to be done to qualify for it? It's actually now that I think about it, it's actually pretty simple. Like we just need two things: we need reasonable access, and then your permission to bring it to the open market. And so what we do is we've been operating in this market for an extremely long time, and we have a more robust network than anybody else you're going to speak to. So if you're looking for, 130,000 while still having the convenience of not having to deal with anything, we're going to be your best chance of connecting you with a buyer that's going to be able to deliver on that. And if any kind of repairs pop up or, agent commissions and like all that kind of stuff, like we take care of all of it. You get to kind of just sit back and let us do all the work while we try to get you the 130. And that's
mm.
what that looks like. And we do at least a couple of those every single month.
Gotcha. And for people who don't understand novations, I guess what's the reason for like why would you not wholesale it or kind of do the light flip on it versus doing that strategy? Like why are you able to offer a little bit more or a lot more?
Novations are nice, yeah, because you don't have to close on the property. The property remains in the seller's name, so we don't have to pay any closing costs. We don't have to pay any financing costs to borrow any kind of money. Um, the repairs are predictable in the sense that we don't really make repairs until we get a buyer on the hook that submitted an earnest money deposit, and then they submit their list of inspection required repairs. Now we know what we're getting into. It's a lot
Mm.
simpler, a lot simpler.
And is there like, will you only kind of do this? I know some people are like, will only kind of do it with like the like kind of they're just dated, but they're still in pretty good shape homes, or will you kind of just do it with any home?
We've been shocked. First ever innovation we did was this like absolutely beater of a house. And I was like, I don't know why we're putting this thing on MLS. I have no idea why we're doing this, but let's just do it. We had three full price offers on the very first day we listed it, all of which were from owner occupants. It was
What?
crazy. Yeah, all of them were surprisingly, it did qualify for conventional loan. We had to like
Mm,
repair like part of the roof, and we had to do some foundation work. But at that point, they'd already submitted. We got them up to like $15,000 worth of EMD.
mm,
So yeah, we went and we fixed the roof. We fixed the foundation on that deal. Let me back up real quick. Before we listed it on the MLS, we blasted it out to our buyers list of 700 people for like an off-market assignment. We had
mm,
it under contract for 60 grand, and we told the seller like we think it's too high. If you want to take a swing, we can. Basically, is what we told them. The
mhm.
highest offer we got from our off-market buyers list was 48 grand. Well, when we listed it, we went under contract at 110 on the first day. Uh,
Whoa.
yeah, it was insane. It was insane. So we put everything that we can put on MLS. We put on MLS because you never know.
Yep. And are you doing like the true novation where it's actually like you're replacing the A to B with the A to C, or are you kind of doing the double close
No,
methodology?
we do a true novation just because closing costs in my market they do add up. I mean, we pay like $3,500 per transaction in closing costs, give or take.
Yep.
If you extrapolate that over, 6 to 8 deals a month, it you can see how that math gets high really, really quickly. Uh, so no, we don't do any double closing if we don't have to.
Gotcha. What percentage of your business is novation versus, either the, kind of fix and flips or wholesales?
It's yeah, it's right around like 25% is novations.
Okay,
Yeah,
cool.
yeah.
Well, we're getting close to the end here, man, but I always have two questions I like to ask people. First one's a little fun, which is what is the craziest or most uncomfortable situation you've ever experienced in a real estate deal?
This was in my first year of real estate. It was one of my first few months. I was taught by the guy I was working for, like you have to get all the decision makers on the appointment in order to go on the appointment. So I had this like, man, this house was built in like 1895, which is ancient in my market. Like there aren't many of those that exist. And I was talking with the seller, and I did what I could to get all the decision makers there. So this was on a Saturday morning, and I get to the house, and the seller meets me outside and opens up the front door, and then the living room is filled with 14 people. Like, so, and this house was torn to shreds. I mean, this thing, oh my gosh. This was probably almost a $200,000 rehab on it was like a 2,800 square foot house. I mean, dude, it needed everything, everything, but the lot was too narrow to be a teardown. So it
Mm,
was like, oh gosh, it was just so crazy. So then it comes time to, I'm like trying to crack jokes because I kind of see where this thing is going. I'm sitting here thinking as I'm walking in the house, I'm like, oh my gosh, like, I'm gonna have to make a real low offer here in front of 15 people. It was 14, and then the seller that let me in is 15. So I was like, I built a really good relationship. I felt like I had the room laughing and all that, and one of them was like, "All right, man, come on, like let's get down to the numbers." It's like, okay. So I was like, I tried to do what I could to pull a number out of them, and they're like, "Look, man, you're the expert here. We're just trying to find out." And I'm like, "This is going to sound insane, and you guys are probably going to want to beat me up before I get out of this house." But I'm not kidding. I have to buy this house for $40,000. And the seller that I'd been talking to pipes up and goes, my mom owes 210 on it. I was like, oh, okay. I'm just gonna go.
I'm gonna leave. Yeah.
So that was for me, like that was easily like the most uncomfortable appointment I'd ever been on before. I mean, thankfully, like there were a couple of them that were like definitely like upset. I mean, they were like visibly upset. Some of them like threw up their hands and are you kidding me? Like that kind of stuff. Thankfully, like two of them, like I mean, it was no secret. Like this house was like hardly
Yeah.
livable.
Yeah.
Uh, a couple of them were pretty reasonable, but man, yeah, I thought I was gonna be burned at the stake that day.
It's like holding court, man. 15 people.
I'm serious. Like there wasn't. That was the other thing. Is like when I walked into the living room, like I couldn't sit because like all the chairs were taken and everything. So like they were all kind of like seated or like leaning against the wall, and it was me like kind of in the middle of the living room, like literally giving a presentation and then presenting this $40,000 offer that's 170 grand below what they owe.
Would you guys be opposed to bringing 170K to the closing? Like,
Yeah, that one
uh,
was wild, man. That one was wild, but it was like looking back on it, like you did, like I did everything I was supposed to. I got all the decision makers there, and like I honestly wasn't giving a lowball number. Like 40 was it. 40
yeah,
was it, and I think it would have been a hard sell. I'm serious. Like I think even had I gotten it at 50, I don't think it would have been a big, or I mean at 40, I don't think it would have been a big fee at all.
yeah,
That was just a tough situation.
yeah. Jeez. Well, second question for the people who are a little bit newer to the business is if you could go back in time, let's say like when you first went out on your own, and if you give yourself one piece of advice, knowing what you know now, what would you tell yourself?
Invest in yourself with like without a doubt, no brainer.
Mm.
I for whatever reason like the first probably like 2 years in the business like thought like I basically believed in the stigma that most mentors were scams, like these like masterminds, a lot of them were scams, all these courses were scams. Like I didn't invest in any kind of education at all just because I thought they would just like take the money or whatever. So I went like the first 2 years in the business without ever doing that. And then finally like I started investing in myself, investing in like a course here or a coach there. And that's when I started to see some serious growth. That's when I started to get my time back. That's when I went from like I hesitate to even call it a high paying job, man. I was like truly like a victim of the business to like actually
Mhm.
building a business. Like once I like paid for that mentorship. So the coaches that I hired and the courses that I've paid for, like those have been my highest ROI, higher than any flip, higher than any rental property, higher than any other marketing source. Like just no brainer at all. I just can't believe I burned 2 years of my business without doing that. I look back and it hurts, but at least I know now moving forward.
Yeah. And if people are looking for, because I think the key is like the right coach or the right
Yeah.
mentor, right? Like any advice to someone who's like, which way should I go here?
hmm Um, shameless plug to Chandler. I know you and I are both friends with Chandler, and it's easy to say that as a friend of his. But I didn't know Chandler when I first reached out to him. So, my business used to average about 40 grand a month top line when I first met Chandler, and that was just September of last year. Now we're averaging 127 grand a month, um, and that's all a result of joining Level Up, which is Chandler's education program. I mean, I mean, honest, I don't get paid for any referrals or anything like that at all. Like it just truly for my business was like everything, truly everything.
Yeah. Yeah. Chandler Sharp, man. The good dude.
Yeah.
Um, cool, man. Well, if people want to reach out to you after the show, if they have questions or, maybe they have some deals they want to sell you in your market, how could they go about doing that?
Instagram definitely is going to be the best. I'm on Instagram at homebuyer Tyler. That'll be the best place to find me.
Sweet. Awesome, man. Well, this is great. Thanks for being on today.
Of course. Yeah. Thanks for having me, Mike. This was fun.